Deputy Speaker, surely the key question that we should be asking ourselves this afternoon is, if Parliament were to pass this motion and this information were to be released, would that undermine our negotiating position? And I would argue, Madam Deputy Speaker, that that is most certainly the case. Of course, it is the aim and objectives of those who support the Remain cause to hope that the EU will give us the worst possible terms, and that as a result we would go on to reject it. But of course there are additional reasons. There are the practical reasons and the political judgments that has to be made. What do we know already? Well, we know that the government is intent on delivering the Brexit that was determined by the referendum. We know that they are going to bring back control of our money, our borders and our laws to this House rather than be based in Brussels. And in doing that, they intend to ensure as frictionless trade as possible between ourselves and the EU, to avoid a hard border in Ireland and to establish an independent trade policy. What do we know at the moment in terms of facts and figures? We know that in 2016 we had a trade deficit with the EU of 71 billion. We know that the UK had a trade surplus with the rest of the world of 34 billion in the same year. The European Commission has predicted that 90% of world growth, world economic growth over the next 10 to 15 years will come from outside the European Union. Surely, Madam Deputy Speaker, our focus should be on the countries outside the EU. I'll gladly give way.
I'm grateful, Tim, for giving way on this point. But this is just total fantasy stuff. The idea that we do not presently trade with the rest of the world is just laughable. Through the European Union, we have trade agreements with the rest of the world. The reality is that leaving the customs union, leaving the single market, will diminish that ability. But this is what I find unbelievable as a London MP. My city will be all right post-Brexit. It won't be easy, but it will be all right. Communities like his, big fishing communities, are going to be absolutely hammered. What on earth is he doing justifying the absurdity of the government's policy?
Well, for the honourable member even to suggest that the fishing industry in some way has benefited from the membership of the European Union is quite simply laughable. I would gladly invite him along to my constituency. Let him meet the people who were involved in the fishing industry. And quite simply, there are very few of them involved in the fishing industry now because of the European Union. Madam Deputy Speaker, if I can return to my script, I think it's noticeable that, going back to the facts and figures that I quoted a moment ago, if I could reflect on Liam Halligan, who wrote in the Sunday Telegraph only this week, if the customs union is so vital to Britain, why are we running a massive trade deficit inside it, but a large surplus with the nations outside? Quite simply, Madam Deputy Speaker, what we need to ensure is that we're able to set our own trade policies to deal to trade freely with the expanding economies in the world, and the reality is those economies are not in the European Union. We've got to widen our horizons. That's always been the success of Britain, that we are free trade with the world as a whole. I'll give way one more time.
I thank him to give way. Can he specify which countries he's got in mind about these wonderful free trade arrangements that we are going to have?
Well, I'm not listing the countries. What I'm saying is that all countries outside of the main growth in the world trade is outside the European Union, and that should be our focus. I don't know if the honourable lady has travelled to the Far East, to South America, to some of the African nations which are expanding. And actually, by dealing with the developing nations, we're actually supporting the poorer parts of the world. Surely, as a Liberal Democrat, she should be behind such proposals. No, I think I've given away twice already, and I recognise that time is running out. The reality Madam Deputy Speaker, is the government, as I said, has made clear its intentions and how it intends to improve these. The government has been very clear. We will leave the customs union in March 2019, and any attempt to thwart that is an attack on the democratic process and the clearly defined will of the British people. In my own constituency, 70% voted for leave. They didn't vote for half leave, which is what members opposite are trying to achieve, who want to remain in a single market or a customs union. They wanted to leave, full stop, absolutely and complete. In terms of other issues that we know, we're talking about mechanisms at the border. What we do know is that there are many new mechanisms that can be used. Pre-notification schemes such as the WTO and the EU-approved economic operator schemes. All of these are currently operating and tested. The border between Switzerland and the EU is passed by many more people and vehicles than the Irish border. It is not beyond the will, the wit of this government and indeed this Parliament to come up with a solution. I am confident that a solution can be found. As I say, we voted to leave, not to half leave. This motion should be rejected. It undermines our negotiating position and should be rejected out of hand.